Vienna main station. I'm on my way to Budapest, where I'm gonna test two brand new pieces of photographic equipment I acquired recently. What are those two things? Well, I'm gonna tell you later, but now I have to make sure that I catch my train. Oh no, there goes my cart. Let's take this entry. Minutes to go. Hey and welcome to Budapest. I'm Thomas Eisl, professional photographer, visual artist and imaging expert from Vienna, Austria. But today I'm not in Vienna, I'm in Budapest, right? So some of you who are regulars on the channel might get a déjà vu because approximately a year ago I also did a video in Budapest, but today I'm up to something completely different. I've got other things that I'm gonna show you, quite frankly, but before I do that, I have to get some food and something to drink because the train ride was quite exhausting. But first, I'm gonna turn my travel luggage into a backpack. Now that is much more convenient. Let's go. Hey, so convenient. I got everything on my back right now. So all I need for my trip here, as well as all my photo gear. Love it. As promised, I'm back. I ate, I drank, I showered, I got new clothes, I'm ready to go. So let me tell you about the two new items that I recently acquired, and let me give you the background story which brought me here to Budapest. Well, I got a new lens, the Sirui 20mm t1.8 Anamorphic cine lens. A very special lens indeed, but a tricky one to use. So before using this lens reliably for professional assignments, I just needed more practice. So my first thought for today was, well, I've got no client coming in, so I'm just gonna head out into the streets of Vienna and practice a little bit and vlog about it, right? But then I remembered that there is a second new acquisition in my cupboard, and that's the one thing that's on my back right now, and that's the PGYTECH OneMo travel backpack. I initially got this backpack because I planned on having a piece of luggage that can serve both as storage room for stuff that I need for a one-nighter, as well as a dedicated compartment for camera equipment. This is backpack, hand luggage and also sling bag all in one. You already saw that previously that I carried it with handles, and then now it's on my back. But the cool thing really is that it's a bit modular, so you can just get the backpack and then you can buy a compartment that fits in there. I went with the medium compartment, and while I'm gonna get some amazing shots here in Budapest, well, hopefully amazing shots, at least I'm gonna get some practice, you can take a look at what I actually packed in this medium camera bag insert there with a little montage. So let's go and see you tomorrow. Hey, good morning. Day 2 here in Budapest. For this photo walk, I actually ditched my PGYTECH OneMo backpack. So I just took the camera insert, the medium one that you just saw in the montage with me. It's of course not as good as my dedicated high-quality Compagnon leather camera bags, but for a quick walk through the city, it's okay. Let me try whether I can show that to you really quick. Whoop. So there you saw it. It's a bit of a makeshift solution, but actually it works quite well for that. Now, back to the main topics of this video. On the one hand, of course, I want to share my impressions about my shiny new items and how they perform in practice. I will do that, but I also want to share a quick tip for you when you purchase a new lens, right? Because when you purchase a new lens, you should definitely give it 1 day or at least 2 days where you just go out and take a few test shots trying to learn how this lens performs and how it works with the given camera. It is very important to understand that taking these test shots is not about getting good shots. You know, it's not even about photographing what you like to photograph. It's really about just getting to know your lens, you know, photographing at different apertures, trying all autofocus modes, trying all drive modes, and just see how the lens reacts and whether everything works, you know, all these things. And that's exactly what I do today. So, and here is actually my tip when you do that. You should always take notes. But taking notes in the city can be quite inconvenient, you know, always whipping out the notebook and the pencil. So that's quite a thing. So what I tend to do is I bring either my Olympus LSP4 or my OM system LSP5 voice recorder with me, and I just record little snippets, you know, like back in the day at the doctor's office. And it's really a good idea to do that, to bring a device like this instead of just using your cell phone. First, a cell phone is always distracting, so you unlock it, and then of course you get all the messages and stuff like that. You want to reply and do whatever, but yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should focus on the lens. And the other big benefit of having a dedicated voice recorder is that really you just hit a button, it records, and that's it. Also, there are many other reasons to get an LSP5, right? Because it's not really just a voice recorder, it's a high-end audio recorder. Maybe I'm gonna feature it in a future video. If you want to learn more about it, let me know in the comments down below. So yeah, so I know that you might want to hear more about it. Be that as it may, enough said about voice recorders, enough said about lens testing, because now I have to get to lens testing. I've got only a few hours left here in Budapest, and yeah, so gotta take care of that. And yeah, actually, I can't wait to continue my tests because yesterday was quite promising. So, see you later. I think we're onto something good. Quick recap while I'm taking a break. So what I found most noticeable about the 20mm t1.8 is that while it is an autofocus lens, the autofocus is somewhat quirky. I found some hacks actually to improve it, especially with the OM system OM1. But yeah, you have to learn it, and I'm actually quite glad that I took the opportunity to test this lens first before bringing it to a professional assignment, because, well, yeah, wouldn't be good to find out in front of the client that you have to change some camera settings and do some experimentation, right? But yeah, I'm gonna talk about that later on in the studio. And what I also found out is that while I was initially a bit complainy, right, about the PGYTECH medium camera insert and its use as a camera bag, I'm actually pleasantly surprised by now. Take a look at that. The cool thing is it opens up like this, and this actually gives me great access to all the stuff I brought here. So the only thing that is bad though is that when you want to access your equipment while on the go, it's a bit tricky because of this flap position. Everything tends to fall out, so you have to place this one on a flat surface, or you know, like kind of angle it against your body, and then you can access it. So it's really not a substitute for a camera bag, but for a day, right, it's okay. Hey there, time to go home to Vienna. Join me in the studio in a minute. For me it's gonna be a few hours, but for you it's just gonna be one fade to black until we see each other again. Welcome back to my studio in Vienna. In this last segment I'd like to talk about the main character of today's video, the reason why I went to Budapest in the first place. And that's of course the Sirui 20mm t1.8 anamorphic autofocus lens. So I'd like to divide this segment into two subsegments, because an anamorphic lens has on the one hand a very special unique characteristic optically, which is why you want to get an anamorphic lens in the first place, and second, this specific lens has something that only very few anamorphic lenses on the market do have, and that's autofocus. Let me start with the unique characteristics of the Sirui T1.8. First and foremost, as an anamorphic lens, it has something called the squeeze factor. It is 1.33 times. And this squeeze factor was in the times of analog movie making used to record a widescreen frame on a smaller movie frame in order to save cost during production, for example. Now, this technical aspect is obsolete today, but what isn't obsolete is the unique look that you get when working with an anamorphic lens. While this characteristic is sought after in filmmaking, it can also be utilized for photography, which is exactly what I intend on doing with this lens. So, due to the squeeze factor, the field of view of the lens is compressed and has to be de-squeezed in post-production. Now the squeeze is applied only horizontally, which means that when you de-squeeze an image captured with a micro four thirds camera and the Sirui 20mm t1.8, you get an image frame with an aspect ratio of approximately 16:9, which is of course the format that is mostly utilized for movies today. For example, the YouTube video you are watching right now is of course also in 16:9. Now that is already very special, but this de-squeezing and the special anamorphic element that is utilized in this anamorphic lens also adds unique characteristics from an aesthetic standpoint to the image. On the one hand, the bokeh is distorted, and on the other hand, this lens element gives you very distinct flares should there be a light source bright enough in the frame. I'll show you these characteristics and even more interesting characteristics of this lens in a second when I bring up my sample photographs I captured in Budapest. But there is also one additional very interesting aspect to this anamorphic lens, and that is its horizontal angle of view. Due to the squeeze factor, this 20mm lens actually gives you a horizontal angle of view equivalent to that of a 15mm lens. So converted to 35mm format, this lens actually gives you a 30mm equivalent angle of view, but only horizontally, because as I mentioned, the vertical part of the frame is of course shorter. So it is very much a wide-angle lens, therefore, which encourages you to compose very differently. So this is a hate or love thing. I love it. It gives you a very unique perspective, but of course that's personal preference. Be that as it may, I think it's time to look at some photographs captured with the 20mm and the OM system OM1. Allow me to start with my absolute favorite image I captured during this trip, and it really shows what this very special anamorphic lens is capable of. This photograph was captured at t1.8, so wide open, with a shutter speed of 1/8 second. Note the unique highlight glow, which is a result of both the OM system OM1's specific sensor as well as the T1.8's unique characteristic. It is very film-like indeed. Let me bring up another film still. This photo was also captured at t1.8. I experimented a bit with focusing on subjects 1 to 2 meters away and examined the bokeh and overall characteristic of this lens. And to my surprise, the lens is on the one hand very sharp at t1.8 already, and on the other hand it gives this truly unique out of focus look. Again, very cinematic and very pleasing. And while you cannot tell at first glance what makes this lens so special, what makes this photo so special, we know that it is because of its anamorphic element. I've prepared 2 additional images to really show what's going on in the bokeh, because in this photograph you can just see that there is something, but not exactly what. In this image, also captured at t1.8, we can look at the point light sources and we can clearly see that the bokeh shapes are oval. And this uniquely distorted bokeh pattern is the one characteristic why anamorphic lenses are so popular in the first place. Now in the next photograph, also captured at t1.8, we can get a slight hint at the special bokeh, but even more important than that, we can see the special vertical flare the anamorphic element of the Sirui 20mm t1.8 produces. If we look very closely, we might get the impression that the flare is slightly curved, and that is indeed possible, but in my opinion it adds to the overall character and doesn't distract from the image at all. Now in the next photograph, captured at t1.8, I was also able to get this unique highlight glow, actually without any effort. During capture I didn't even realize it, but when I brought the images into Silky Pics, well, then it became immediately apparent that this lens camera combination delivers stunning highlight glow effects. Of course, I also entered this abandoned basketball court and took a close-up image, which you can see right there. The lens has a close focusing distance of 0.4 meters, and even at this very short distance it is sufficiently sharp. But of course, this lens can not only do close-up, wide open, it can also do far away and very sharp. Stopping down to f4, I was able to get consistently sharp images, and I've picked this photograph as a sample for that. As you can see, the sharpness readily supports large print sizes. Even though the lens is very sharp at f4, it is also perfectly usable at t1.8, as this photograph captured under very harsh lighting conditions illustrates. Now, what did I learn from my practical test? Well, I learned that I can use this lens reliably at t1.8. And with an anamorphic lens you truly have to test that, because your camera preview only gives you the squeezed image. And of course, when you de-squeeze the image, you lose a little bit of sharpness. So you really have to test an anamorphic lens at every aperture to really find out whether it is sharp enough at the aperture you intend on using. But again, with the 20mm t1.8, I now know that I can use it at t1.8 and even frame a subject off center. So I'm very happy with that, and I'm also very happy that I did test that, because now that gives me the confidence for using this lens for professional assignments. Now let me talk about the second defining feature of the 20mm that I already teased in the beginning of this segment, and that is of course that this is an autofocus lens. As some of you might know, Sirui recently joined the Micro Four Thirds standard, so they now include electronics data transfer whatsoever in this lens to be fully compatible with OM system cameras. Now the big question is, how compatible is this lens really? And I have to admit that it has a few quirks, but they actually make sense. Let me get into the details here. First, let's talk about the autofocus performance. Coupled with the OM system OM1, this lens is best used with phase detection autofocus modes. When you use a contrast detection autofocus mode like SAF, you can still focus, but not as reliably as with a phase detection based autofocus method. So my recommendation is definitely use CAF, or even better, use manual focus. So Of course, it sounds a little bit counterintuitive that you would use an autofocus lens with manual focus, but indeed there are significant advantages in buying an autofocus lens like the Sirui and using it in manual focus on a Micro Four Thirds camera. The reason for that is the automatic focusing aids that your OM system camera provides. So if you've enabled any focus assist feature in the corresponding menu of your OM system camera, turning the focus control ring of the Sirui 20mm will automatically trigger these features, making it way more convenient to be focused manually than, let's say, a dumb lens, because there you have to map the focus assist feature to a button and bring it up manually, while again with this fully compatible lens actually the features come up automatically. Nonetheless, there is a small quirk here, and that has to do with the focus control ring. First, the good news, and that is that this focus control ring is linear. Usually on OM system cameras, focus control rings are non-linear, so that means the amount of focus movement of the lens elements depends on the speed and extent with which you turn the focus control ring, but here it is always strictly linear. This linear focus throw is of course very beneficial when you plan on rigging this camera out, especially with a follow focus, because then you want exactly linear focus movements. Now there is only one quirk in here, and that has to do with the direction of this focus control ring. So in OM system cameras you can usually set the focus direction, but Sirui decided to override that, and with this lens, regardless of menu setting, you have to turn the focus ring to the right to focus to infinity, and you have to turn the focus ring to the left to focus at close distances. So that's just a minor quirk that you have to be aware of. I'd also like to note that the aperture ring, which is present on the 20mm t1.8, is non-functional when using this lens on an OM system camera. So what is my very personal verdict regarding the 20mm t1.8? Well, do I like it? Not really. Actually, I love it. This lens delivers everything I was looking for. It gives me an image with a unique character. It is highly usable in practice. It is fully compatible with my OM system cameras. It is very well built. And yes, I really like the anamorphic look, and I'm very much looking forward to bringing this lens to client sessions, as I'm sure that my clients will appreciate this very unique look that this lens is capable of. And on the back end, it is important to note that due to its compatibility, it won't slow down my workflow like some manual focus lenses do. Thank you for joining me on this field trip with my two latest acquisitions, the Sirui 20mm t1.8 autofocus anamorphic and the PGYTECH OneMo travel backpack. Should you consider acquiring one of these two items or both, please utilize the affiliate links found in the video's description in order to support the channel. Speaking about supporting the channel, I invite you to contribute with a small donation or by becoming a channel member. The latter gives you access to channel member exclusive videos, channel member exclusive live streams, as well as direct support in the comment section of this video and all other videos found on the channel by me personally. Thanks for your consideration, and see you next time.